Welcome, listeners, to Master Your Money, the show based on how to build your entrepreneurial and your financial mindset so you make more money and accelerate your business. Now, I've put together this show interviewing some really incredible speakers, business owners, because I wanted to learn from their wisdom and their insights about how they've built their businesses, but at the same time, they've also built their financial world and set up their future in that regard too. Because I've just seen a lot of business owners around, and I've seen, one story is my friend's dad who's been working for business years and years and years and years, and now he's getting to that retirement age, and it kind of seems like, was it even worth it? Would it have been better just to get a job? And I don't want to see any more people go through that experience as well. So I'm putting this together to help you, help myself as well. I've learned incredible amounts of insight and strategy from my speakers so far. And I just want to welcome you. I just want to thank you for joining us here today. And today we have a very special guest, Amanda Fisher. She's here to join us and speak on these topics in particular. And she's incredibly experienced in this area. She's also known as the cash flow queen. She's a multi-award winning CFO, and she's an author. And what she does is she educates business owners on the numbers so that they can improve their cash flow, improve their profits, and really make informed decisions about where they go with their business. So, Amanda, thank you so much for joining us here on the show.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. It's an absolute delight to be able to share with your audience. It's such an important topic.
Definitely. And when I heard about what you did, I just thought this is perfect to pull these through together. And I'd love to just dive into that. How did you start? How did you become the cash flow queen?
Well, that's a funny story in a way, because I resisted the name. So people started calling me the cash flow queen, and I kind of went, yeah, but nah, it's not me. And it's I do so much more than cash flow. And I think that was one of the reasons I resisted the name, because I do everything to do with understanding business numbers. So it's all about financial reports, how to use them, how to get the numbers in your system properly so you get the right answers. And yes, it does help cash flow, but it also increases profit and gives people confidence and clarity about where their business is going. So I resisted the name for a long time. And I actually looked back recently, because I registered the name actually quite a few years ago, but I only started using it probably in the last 12 months. And
okay.
It's just one of those things that you kind of go, you know what, I just got to take it on. Everyone's calling me that. Go with it.
Yeah, embrace it. And how did that come about? And you said you've registered it now. Tell us a bit about your story in business and how you got to this place where you are now.
So my background, I'm a chartered accountant, been doing that for more years than I care to confess to, and but on both sides of the fence. So I've done the professional accounting practice, doing tax returns, financial statements, and all the what I call boring stuff. And I've also been financial controller, CFO for businesses. So I've been on both sides of sort of the accounting fence, if you like. And what I was finding probably 6-7 years ago was more and more of my clients were, really struggling to understand their numbers. With the advent of cloud accounting, they've got information at their fingertips. So by using an online system, instead of waiting for the bookkeeper to come in once a month or once in 3 months to upload and do the numbers, they had the figures at their fingertips and wanted to start asking questions about it. And what I realised was there's just a dearth of information about what the numbers are and how to interpret them. And so I did a bit of a pivot in my business. I sold my accounting practice, the traditional side, so that I focus on the education, because no one else is doing it that I can see. And it's such an important part of anybody in business to understand their numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was that like, going from transition from the sale of the business into the education side?
It's been an interesting exercise. I miss my team because I had really good team around me, and I kind of went from a team to being solo, and that was a little hard, but it's just allowed me to help more and more people, because I just didn't have the time while I was running the accounting practice to devote to it. So it's been really fulfilling from my perspective, and great to get the feedback from people who been to a workshop or listened to me speak or done online or worked with me one-on-one, the difference that I'm making. And that's what it's about. It's about helping people to get a better result. Too many businesses fail early on, and they don't need to. A lot of it's lack of education and knowledge about numbers. So,
wow, yeah, it's just, I mean, they're the lifeblood of the business. But I mean, that's so important. And it was interesting you said that. So you went from the accounting firm there, but now you've gone solo on the education side, and you feel like you're being able to help a lot more people in that. Are you getting that feedback from people back instantly as they implement what you're teaching? Is that part of it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And just being able to see when I'm doing the one-on-one or group coaching, just to see, in an environment like a Zoom call or something, and seeing sort of, you can almost see the weight falling off their shoulders. You can almost see them starting to, sit up taller, and just, it's just so nice to know that it's making a difference. And I've seen some really great results financially that people are receiving in terms of increasing their gross profit, increasing their net profit, being able to take home more money for themselves so they can look at building their own wealth, paying off mortgages, whatever, saving for the mortgage for the younger ones, deposit kind of thing. So all of those things, and it's just, that to me is more satisfying than saving them $5,000 in tax, which pretty much most accountants can do if they know what it's not nothing special.
Yeah.
Whereas this is it feels different.
Yeah. It's from what you're saying, it kind of sounds like you're able to meet people along the journey as they're working in their business and help them tweak and change little things. Whereas maybe at the accounting side, you might have been more at the end of the process once that's all happened.
Correct. So for me, I talk about it as looking forward to the future, not looking back over your shoulder at the history. And it is about focusing on the future. Financial reports, by their very nature, are historical, and that's fine. And they can help to inform what the future might look like. But spending too much time just looking back over your shoulder over what happened isn't going to get you into a different, better result in the future. I think it's focusing on, okay, that's what happened last month. Now, what can we do differently to get a different result next month? And moving it as a forward-thinking exercise. And then you compare how that went to where you thought you were going to go, and you get some wins, and it's exciting, and it's great to see businesses flourish. And that's the important part. We go into business because we love what we do, not because we're good at accounting, unless you are one, but you want it to survive. You want it to fulfill all the dreams that the person had when they started that. And some of those dreams all of those dreams really require the financial side of it to be working. You can love what you're doing, but if you're not making any money, then somewhere along the line, you're going to get stressed out about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not a happy place.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you don't have that cash flow coming in, then you can't really serve and help people the way we dream about in business to do that too. Yeah. So that's part of it. I mean, that's it. We're in business to make money, and people have dreams, have visions of their ideal lifestyle, and for the most part, that involves helping others get what they want so that they can have that cash flow too. And then it transfers into our personal spending lives too. And with your history as an accountant, I'd really love to jump back in time and tell us a little bit what's been your first ever memory you had around dealing with money.
Well, it's an interesting one. So I am Australian by birth, but grew up in England and my teenage years in Canada. When we
Yep.
moved to Canada, I was about 11 or 12, and England is like Australia, schools with school uniforms. Canada, like America, no school uniform. And so I went to school the first day in what I thought was a very pretty dress. I was very happy until I walked into the school and everybody there was wearing jeans and T-shirts. And talk about, standing out. I did a good job. And I went home that night and said, Mum, please can we go out tonight? In North America, the shops are open till 10 p.m, 7 days a week. So, please can we go out tonight? I need a pair of jeans and a T-shirt. And my mum turned around to me and said, honey, darling, whatever. I don't know what term of endearment it was, but, Amanda, I'm really sorry, but we have no money until your dad gets paid. And as soon as dad gets paid, definitely we'll go out. But that was kind of my first memory, but around the same time, my mum used to keep what today we would call a spreadsheet, or a manual version, a while back. She'd come home with the tape from the grocery store, and she was keeping track of how much money was being spent on dairy, meat, veggies, cleaning, I don't know, whatever else. And partly that was because, having come from England to Canada, she didn't really know kind of what the pricing was. She was trying to get a handle on how much it was going to cost to feed us all. But those were the two big things. One was around budgeting, and the other was about, there was a limited paycheck, and, we had to wait for the next one. And I've never forgotten those. That was a long time ago, but I tell you what, clear as day.
Yeah. And I mean, that first story seems to be, it's quite an emotional story. You could probably put yourself back in that situation and feel exactly what you're feeling.
Yeah. It was not nice. Shall we put it that way? It was not.
Yeah.
Nice.
And how has that maybe then influenced your view on money after that point? Can you look back and see a bit of a progression of things happening there?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that for a long time stood me, perhaps in good stead or bad stead, depending which way you look at it, but was around scarcity of money. So rather than having an abundance mindset, it very much was around, scarcity, budgeting, making sure you live within your means, that kind of exercise. So there's a good part of that. And there's I think, it's all like all those things. If you're too far on one extreme, it's not good. You kind of need a bit of both. And I was definitely on the extreme of lack of money and just trying to constrain and not then allowing for things to flourish because you're too into the, I've got, $10 left in my paycheck and how can I make that last?
And is that something then when you got into accounting that you had to change along the way for your own business, and when you were looking at other people's businesses, how did that personal experience then transition over into your business spending?
Yeah, look, I think for a long time it didn't impact because for a lot of my early years, all I was doing was tax returns. And I don't say all I was doing tax returns, but it wasn't business advice. In the early days when I started out, accountants, all we did was end of year financial statements and tax returns. We didn't provide business advice. It wasn't something we got involved in. So all of that kind of background of mine wasn't relevant to the work that I was doing. It's only been in more later years where I've got a bit more, when I started to get more in the education, business advisory space, that started to kind of went, oh, this is interesting. So it's been really good because it does help me to, I'm very conscious of the need to budget and the need to identify where your money is going. I don't particularly concentrate on the personal in terms of my work, but it's something that, I do sort of, what I say is that what I talk about in business, you do need to apply in your personal, but I'm not going to delve into your personal life about where you're spending your money. That's not my role. I'd rather stay in the business realm. But it does flow through because the two very much similar, just on different sets of numbers. So it's been good in the budgeting sense, and I think for me, I've had to certainly retrain my mindset into the abundance side rather than the limitation and scarcity kind of mindset. That's been a retrain, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And is there, mentors or particular books you've read or podcasts or something like that you've done consciously to change that over time? How's that looked?
So I think that, I'll backtrack a little bit. When I started out as an accountant, I was one of very few women in the industry. So it was a very male-dominated industry. And as a result, we women had to kind of stand on our own 2 feet. I look back now and believe that the guys probably were mentored, but then no one stood up and mentored us. So we kind of blazed our own trails. But having said that, in more recent years, yes, I've done a lot of work with Brendan Bouchard, high performance coach out of America, and his coaching team. And that's been really good. It's more on high performance, but in a sense, some of that comes into the money side. On money specifically, no, it's been kind of self-taught.
Yeah.
Self-taught out of necessity, perhaps, but realising that what I was doing wasn't working, so you have to do something different. I do understand that one. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result isn't going to work. I understand that mantra. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, without that awareness, we can never make a change and never put ourselves in a position where we can change there too. So yeah, that's great. And so that training was something you'd been to a seminar or you'd seen something online, or was it a recommendation for you there?
So a friend of mine actually told me about it. I kind of, once you start in the learning space as an entrepreneur, and I would say I've started doing that probably about 7 or 8 years ago, really starting to do more than just my professional kind of training and start doing other training on marketing and personal development, other things. You start, all these things turn up in your life, and a friend of mine recommended it. It's how I started. I have been over to America to the live training. I've paid for the coaching, and it has been really, really good. And I've got other mentors that do other things, but probably around the kind of that mindset side, that's been my main influence. Say lots of other mentors that have helped with writing books and doing other things like that. Absolutely. There's probably I've accumulated a little posse around me now. After years of none, I've got quite a few now.
That's awesome. So you got that team. Tell us about your book. Tell us what you dive into there.
No, this is Unscramble Your Numbers. It's been, I can't remember when I issued published that a few years ago now. So Unscramble Your Numbers specifically is about the basic financial reports. So it goes through balance sheets, profit and loss, cash flows, budgets, key performance indicators, and a few other bits and pieces in there on how to look at the numbers. So what they are, what they mean, how to use them. And so it's a good, basic, easy to read, takes the jargon out. Yes, I've got to use some of the lingo because but the explanations are in easy to understand English. That gives a good basic groundwork on business. My next book, which is publishing early 2020, is called Strangled by the Numbers. And it's a bit more of some of my personal stories on events that have happened and the numbers that I should have been looking at that I perhaps wasn't at the time. I certainly have had some times when I've buried my head in the sand and kind of hustled hard to get more money in without looking at the numbers. And then when I have finally looked at the numbers, gone, I didn't need to really stress. You just need to focus on the numbers and pull it through when you know what you're actually doing. So that's a different twist on that coming out, say, early in 2020. I'm rather excited about that one. It's the next level. So Unscramble Your Numbers gives the basic knowledge, and this next book is more around, okay, if you find yourself in this particular situation or something similar, these are the numbers you should be focusing on. So kind of a bit more of, in this situation, use these numbers. In that situation, use those numbers. That's in terms of focus. And I'm really excited about that. It's with the editors at the moment, so it's
excellent.
So exciting stage at the moment to see what it ends up looking like.
Yeah, that's great. I can't wait to read it. And definitely, listeners, unscramble your numbers, because I see it in when working with people with their personal finances as well, and in business too. Yeah, that burying your head in the sand side of things, or it seems harder than it probably really is. And from what you're saying, breaking it down into those understandable steps just makes things manageable there and gives you that game plan. It's fantastic.
And I think the thing is, it is about looking at where you're spending your money, and yes, it's also about making more income and more sales as well. But I think often there's money that's wasted or unnecessary that creeps into a business expense that people don't realise has crept in unless you're really focusing on it. And I remember at one point working, and I did get into some personal finance with this one particular person, and I asked her to keep a record of where she spent all her money for, a fortnight. Can't remember what time period it was. Normal pay period, I think, was a fortnight. And she'd spent something like, I don't know, $100 on magazines or something. And she was always bemoaning the fact she couldn't save money, she didn't have money for a holiday, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And I went, you save that $100, there's $2,500 at the end of the year. There's the money for your holiday. So, there's some real eye-openers when you delve into it that you don't realise when you're just kind of going about your day-to-day, and it's only when it's kind of in your face that you kind of go, whoa.
Yeah.
I realise I was spending that much on that.
Again, coming back to that awareness and like really clarity around that, the number amount attached to it. That's great. That's right. Fantastic. Now, I want to dive into the mindset side of things, both in the entrepreneurial side and the financial space as well. So, if you could let the listeners know here, what's the one thing that's made the biggest difference in your financial mindset that you've encountered? Let's start there first.
I don't know. I guess because the thing about that, from my perspective, is I've been working in numbers all my life that I can remember. So it's been a bit of an evolving thing without it necessarily being what I would say a big But having said that, I do think that when I was in a position when business was really tough at one point, through various reasons, I was in the middle of a court battle, and just everything was sort of spiraling down out of control, and I was burying my head in the sand. I think when I finally was brave enough to look at the numbers, I mean, I knew they were going to be horrific. When I was brave enough to look at the numbers and sit and, try and dispassionately look at what it was and what could I do, I think that was the point where I really went, you just can't not look at them. They are so vital. Because, yes, I get that I'm an accountant and I understand what I'm looking at from the get-go. I get that. But nonetheless, the peace of mind it gave me, the stress that was relieved just by me looking at the numbers that I'd avoided for some months, I might add. It wasn't just a couple of weeks. It was months, and I just ignored it and kept working hard. And stressing myself out about it, worrying about how was I going to pay the wages, how was I going to pay the rent. It's just the whole thing was, as I say, spiraling badly out of control. The moment I started looking at it and went, okay, so I need to do this, I need to do that, and I don't need that expense, I'm going to have to chop A staff member. Yes, I did have to do that. Those sorts of decisions just became really obvious. And I think that was probably the biggest thing at that stage, was realising that we can't go any period of time without looking at those numbers.
Yeah.
It's and perhaps that's the big catalyst that made me go, I want to help more people to be looking at understanding their numbers, to really know what's happening in their business, to look at them, even if it's only for 5 or 10 minutes once a month, just to have that quick look to kind of go, yeah, I'm on track, or whoops, I'm not on track. Okay, now I need to spend a bit more time, because what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I think that's probably, because I've never not looked at the numbers since then.
Yeah.
Probably look at them too frequently, but that's that's the nerd in me. But
It's what you're passionate about, so you got to dive into it.
Yeah, I can't help myself. I look at my numbers every day, but
yeah,
they don't change much.
That's great. And I mean, my next question was then, what's been the biggest mindset difference with your entrepreneurial mindset? But it seemed like maybe you touched on it a bit without having gone through that process with your finances. You've actually discovered that whole other pivot to your business. Yeah,
that's probably right. Because you see, as I say, I said earlier, I was one of the few women in the accounting industry when I started. I was the only female accountant in an office of 50. The other women in the office were the secretaries and the receptionists. So, like, I was always the person who didn't fit in, if you like. I was always the odd one. But more than that, I always felt that I didn't quite fit the accounting mold, and I never quite fitted in, and I never really understood why. I always kind of thought, it's because I'm a woman, and they're all blokes. And but then in more recent years, I think when probably in about the 1990s, and I did a boot camp for accountants, and it wasn't a physical thing, it was about marketing for accountants, and that kind of shifted my mindset a bit. And from there, it started me to realise that actually maybe the reason I don't fit in as an accountant is because I have an entrepreneurial spirit, and most accountants, sorry accountants if you're listening, but most of them don't. I mean, there's some do, don't get me wrong. I'm being very generalised and very probably unfair to a number of people, but the traditional accounting type person, that type of personality, it doesn't have an entrepreneurial bone in their body. They just, good, logical, get the job done people. Nothing wrong with that. But I think that I always had that entrepreneurial spirit. I just didn't know what it was until I started doing some marketing courses and masterminds and things like that, and started to become a little bit more aware of, this is kind of my world. And then realised that the reason perhaps that I'd always felt that I didn't fit in was more that I was entrepreneurial and I wanted to do things differently, and I wanted to try this and try that. And, I kept hitting the brick walls of tradition.
Yeah.
This is the way we do it. We do not ask questions. We do it this way. No, well, why can't we do it this way? And I think we could do this, and we could save, 3 hours if we did it this way. And it's like, no, this is the way we do it. Thou shalt do it this way. Like, okay. So you kind of make yourself fit in at the same time, kind of going, but I'm just itching to kind of, get out and do something else.
I know the feeling.
So so I didn't think that I'd like this when I was growing up. It's just something that has evolved. I think the education piece was there growing up, definitely. And my high school mates told me I should do teaching, and I kind of went, I couldn't see myself standing in front of a group of unruly high school students teaching them science, because that was my favourite sort of area, or maths. I think, no, I couldn't see myself doing it. But I think the education, the educator in me has always been there, and was there with every client interaction without me realising it for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So it's a very natural progression for me to go, okay, other people can do the tax work, I'm going to do the education piece, because that's not something that everybody's got the capability for.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, well, look, Thank you so much for sharing your journey there and your story through that, Amanda. Now, I know you've got a special gift just for the listeners here, the 5 states of business ownership. Tell us a bit about that and how we can get hold of it.
So the 5 states of business ownership is it's a white paper. Now, don't get scared about the fact it's white paper. I've called it a white paper because I didn't quite know what else to call it. But it's not a tome that's going to take hours to read. It's very quick and easy to read. It's probably got more pictures in it than it's got words. But it's one of the things I looked at was traditionally there's been the stages of business, from startup to growth to, I can't remember what the stages of business are because I work in the other one. And that's fine. But for me, there was something different. And that's the actual, what I call the 5 states of business ownership or the business owner. And that's going from stressing to struggling to surviving to soaring. So it's where are you in that kind of level, and what does that mean for you financially? Are you stressing about the business, or are you struggling, or are you in fact surviving? You're at that survival level, or hopefully and ideally where you want to be is at that soaring level where the business is thriving, the money is rolling around without you having to think about it. And so the white paper is just an explanation of what those are and how you can determine where you are in the ladder, and then perhaps start looking at what you need to do to get the next step up the ladder from a financial perspective, as well as obviously from a mindset and peace of mind perspective in terms of, if you're stressing, that's not a good place to be. Even surviving is not great. You want to be more in that soaring kind of a space where things are just humming along nicely, and not just from the financial perspective, but everything's working nicely. Obviously from my world, it's the financial side of things always.
Yeah. Well, look, listeners, definitely get a hold of that. Like we just heard all about Amanda's journey. She's had her own businesses. She's worked as an accountant looking at other people's businesses, and now she's really in the education space. So she's put that out for free for you to get a hold of, and really anyone at any stage in business that's going to be valuable for. And of course, send her book to Unscramble Your Numbers. Definitely get a hold of that. How can people get hold of your book?
Well, the easiest place is on my website, amandafisher.com.au. My books are all listed on there. That's the easiest place to grab them. You can get the Kindle version of Unscramble Your Numbers on Amazon, but not the print versions. The print version's off my website, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, we'll be sure to check it out. Look, thank you, Amanda, for joining us today. It's been just a wealth of knowledge we've gotten from that, and just to hear what we can do, there's practical steps we can take by looking at some of your resources there. That's incredible. Listeners, make sure you keep tuning in for more of our interviews where we're just going to keep diving into this financial mindset and this entrepreneurial mindset, and give you real key practical strategies on how to accelerate your business and really take charge of your future financially as well. So looking forward to seeing you soon. Thanks, Amanda. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Have a great day, everyone.